to the Dream 100 Show, the epicenter of influence, collaboration, and exponential growth. You're about to discover the power of relationships. Dream 100 relationships. And you're one relationship away from a totally different business and life. This is your host, Michael Tesner.
Hey there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Dream 100 Show. Today's topic is going to be about going after a different type of Dream 100 audience, and I'm going to walk you through a recent success story of how we approached it and really condense down the last 6 to 8 months of strategy and execution down to like a 20-minute training session. So as you know, there are 3 different Dream 100 audiences that we talk about. But the core criteria is that regardless of which of those audiences you go after, they have to have the ability to completely catapult your business. So the first one that we tend to always suggest you start with is going after businesses that can refer you lots of customers. So people that are going to be a strategic alliance, a partnership, an affiliate, they have similar audiences as you, but not necessarily a competing business, and they're going to send people your way. The second audience is your Dream 100 accounts, customers, sales, businesses, whatever that is for the business or the industry that you're in. So for example, if your average value of a customer is $1,000, a Dream 100 maybe is $100,000. And going after those people, making a list, here are those top 100 largest relationships. The third audience is the one we're going to focus in on today, and that is the media. The reason that the media doesn't come up as often is because it's one of those that it's tougher to monetize, but also it's a little bit tougher to track unless you have a couple of elements that go along with it. So for it to, again, be a Dream 100 media relationship, it has to have the ability to catapult and grow your business and really catapult and grow your overall authority. So while you're going to get authority in the other areas, this is the one that can be a big game changer for you. So the disclaimer, none of this was bought PR. So bought PR, bought media, bought press. So there's a little bit of a hidden thing that's not talked about that is very gray hat and scammy and kind of schemy, where you basically, depending on the outlet, there are people that will charge you X amount of money and they'll put you in their article in X publication. But most, if not all, publications have very strict rules about publishing stuff that is paid to be in there. They want authentic stories. They want helpful stuff for their readers. They don't want stuff that's in there only because this business gave $5,000 so they could be mentioned in this article and XYZ magazine. But that industry does exist. So all the stuff that we do is meant to be natural press, natural media, and it's all about using the same exact methodology, the same approach that you're deploying with the other niches, the other areas of Dream 100. So the first thing that we did with this particular business, and for context, it's a trampoline park. They've been in business for about 1.5 years, just outside of my favorite, or one of my favorite cities in the world, Orlando, Florida. If you haven't noticed by now, there are several Disney things in my backgrounds, and I've got a whole nother setup over here that I need to start using as well. But I've got Disney props. On the bottom shelf back there is actually a fun thing from the opening day at Animal Kingdom, from an Imagineer that helped make some of the rides in Animal Kingdom. So big fan of Orlando and all things Disney, and Universal, of course. So trampoline park. And this was roughly 6 to 7 months worth of work. So the way that we started this off was just gathering some intel. So learning about not even the type of business, because I'm versed in trampoline parks. My core agency is called Parent Marketing, and we serve businesses that market to parents. So we work with trampoline parks. So it was a natural way for me to say, hey, great, here's another opportunity for you to grow your business. So we skipped all that, but I got really focused on tell me about your customers. Tell me about the families that are coming in. So Orlando is very touristy, transient. Like there's a lot of different people that could potentially visit the trampoline park. So I said, well, do you want more people just to know about you? Do you want more birthday parties? So we started talking quite a bit about birthday parties, and the average birthday party has roughly 20 people times $50 to $75, sometimes even a little bit higher. Whereas the average family, if they come in only once, it might be $150, $200 for the day if you got a couple of kids and you're paying for the adults. So the nice thing with the birthday parties that we started talking about was, well, you get a much bigger ticket, but then you're exposing all those other kids and parents and families to your trampoline park that hopefully that will encourage other repeat business, referral business, etc. So we talked a lot about that. And I said, do you only want birthday parties? And initially we were like, the revenue is there, but we quickly started to realize that currently, from a capacity standpoint, the birthday parties for a lot of weekends have been sold out for like 8 months. So unless they're going to completely change their business model, they don't have enough party rooms. So then we started talking, well, are you going to reduce some space? They had some other space they could maybe add another room or two or condense them down. And we just decided that was the wrong place to go. And that really they're looking for more awareness about where their business is. They're close to a lot of hotels, and they wanted to bring in a lot of the touristy people that kind of help fill kind of the ebbs and flows. So if you're only relying on parties or you're only relying on, during the day, for example, if everyone's at school, or a lot of people are at school, not everyone, then they were like, we're looking at these numbers and we're saying, well, your trampoline park is half empty for 40% of the day, 30% of the day. So what if we were to start to drive some more awareness and start to fill up those times? So that was the path that we started going down. We looked at everything else. We looked at, okay, great. Can we have some strategic partnerships with, there's a couple of martial arts studios, there's some childcare centers in the area, dance studios, and we looked at that. But in going through and doing a bit of a brand audit, and that's part of the Dream 100, before you start doing any Dream 100 outreach, you've got to audit the brand a bit. And I realized that they really didn't have any kind of media presence. Despite this being a 7-figure business, they really had very little that they did one of those ribbon cutting things with the local Chamber of Commerce in the Orlando, Kissimmee area, but there was very, very little other media that was written. So we made the decision, let's go after the media. So the approach we took a step back and said, okay, great. Who are we trying to drive? So we really, again, got clear on, do we want the tourists that are in the area that maybe it's a rainy day, they're looking for something else to do outside of the theme parks? Do we want more people in the Orlando area to know about you? And we decided that we wanted to focus on the tourist aspect. So that then drove, because that's a very different conversation from a media perspective. So that started to drive the beginning part of the project, which is let's compile this list of 100 to 125 different media outlets, media properties that could catapult their authority, but also in tandem drive tourists into their facility. So what we found was that there were a ton of, I'll use the word Disney in a general sense, but travel influencers. We found TikTok profiles. We found tons of YouTubers that literally they stream, they go to all the theme parks, they talk all things Orlando. What we didn't want to do was only focus on people that were just talking about Disney or Universal, but we wanted to have people that had a pretty wide audience. So we identified about 25 YouTube channels, about 30 people on TikTok that have garnered a pretty wide audience. We found a lot of different blogs. So blogs like Mouse Savers, which were talking about how to save money at Disney and similar properties when you're traveling. And what we did was, as we had those lists, we used a lot of different tools. So SimilarWeb being one tool. And that said, okay, great, we found this person. Now let's go take a look over here at this blog. The blogs are very easy to identify with tools like SimilarWeb. But as we were finding some of these social media influencers, we were looking at who are some of the people they're following. And then that took us down a couple of different rabbit holes. So we ended up having a list of almost 400. And then we whittled that down very quickly based on 80-20. So 80-20 is one of those that I haven't really talked a lot about, but I'm going to do a slight aside. I'm looking for people on the Dream 100 that, again, they have to have the ability to catapult, but I also want some quick wins. So I try and find 80% of those people that make it to the list that are like not easy, but let's call it easy to medium people that we think we can get as a relationship. And then from there, I'll have 20% that are a bit harder. So there were some TikTok influencers that had 7 million followers. So I know when you get anything over a couple 100,000, they're going to want some pretty big dollars to promote their information. And it turns into an advertising game. That's not what we are after. With the Dream 100 media, we want natural people to add us and start to promote us or talk about, and then our authority grows, and ideally we start to drive some new tourists. So we whittled that list of 400 down to just about 130, and roughly 80% of those were kind of smaller to medium-sized influencers, bloggers that are talking about all things Orlando. There were almost like 700 blogs that are just talking about all things Orlando. I mean, there's actually many more, but 700 were one that actually had a good following. They had a fair amount of subscribers based on what they were sharing. We checked their traffic using various tools. So we want to make sure that we're looking at legitimate places. So then we went to work and we had our data team do all the data gathering. Great. They're a TikTok influencer, find their Facebook profile, their Instagram, their Pinterest, their YouTube, their blog, find their email, their phone number, their address, find it all. So we did all the data gathering like we normally do. And then we got to work. We started deploying the systematic framework of the Dream 100. And we took those 130 people and we just started commenting on their materials without mentioning anything about the trampoline park. Now you might say, well, how are they going to find out about it? So what we like to do is leverage the accounts, the social media accounts from someone that works at the trampoline park and or owns it. Typically it's going to be they're one of the owners because we have to kind of commandeer their social media profiles. So we cleaned up their social media profiles a bit. We removed anything that was, I don't want to use the word questionable, but we'll say questionable, to make it look a little bit more, just a little bit cleaner. We removed any of the political stuff and we just kept it a little bit cleaner. And we did that across the boards. So it has that they are one of the partners at the trampoline park. But what we did for the first month, every single day, was we just hit our singles. Every day we went down the list from 1 to 130. We read something or we watched one of the videos that they posted. We left an authentic reply so they know that we watched it or read it. We moved on to the next one. We moved on to the next, and we did that. We didn't see a ton of traction until like week 5. We started to see some comments back and some likes, but then a few things started to happen. We had one of the TikTok influencers that had almost 800,000 followers, subscribers, followers, fans, whatever word you'd like to use. And they replied back and they said, oh, I see you own a trampoline park. Maybe there's some ways to collaborate. So we took that relationship, we put it on our list, we started it, sent a direct message, and we started working that relationship. And I'll fast forward in just a second of how that transpired. And then later, week 5, we got a blog that said something similar, but it said, I've been seeing your comments, so I decided to go and look you up. Looks like you're in Orlando. Maybe we can talk. And over the course of the next couple of months, these started to trickle in about 1 to 2 every single week. And as they came in, we continued to hit those daily singles across all the other platforms, in addition to the ones that had replied to us. Now, once they replied with something that signifies some kind of potential relationship, what do you think we did? We didn't go in for the kill and say, hey, will you write about me? Will you post about me? We got this great trampoline park. We didn't offer them free passes. None of that. We said, I would love to have you on my podcast that talks about all things Orlando tourism. And I want to talk about your profile. I want to just ask you a bunch of questions and give you some free exposure. I'm going to promote it for you. We're going to blast it out on our social media, hopefully get you some new traction. What do you think happened when we started doing that versus trying to ask these other influencers for something gratis? Every one of them except one said yes. So over the last 6 months, we've done almost 40 of these interviews, 40 of these podcasts out of a list of 130 media places. So now, and I'll fast forward in just a minute to the best result, but now we've got 40 interviews that we just did. What do you think we started doing with all those interviews? We repurposed the content. We started using the content on the Trampoline Park's blog, on their social media. We started posting helpful Disney tips. We started tagging the person or business that we interviewed in the post. So now all of a sudden their followers are starting to see our stuff. Before we even had the first person do a reciprocal promotion, for lack of a better phrase, we had already increased the amount of tourist traffic by 21%. 21% over the exact same period, year over year, without investing anything else. So no other new marketing happened because we were meticulously tracking all the numbers. Every single day we could see the metrics, we could see the numbers. But what we started doing was using certain promo codes, and we didn't make it as an implied endorsement. We'd say it as a small thank you to, I'll say Mouse Savers. I can't remember if Mouse Savers did something with us or not, but let's say Mouse Savers. When we would post the content and say, here's the full interview, and then we would start posting all the short clips, and here's a great tip for Mouse Savers. As a small thank you, if anyone comes in, mention Mouse Savers, and we'll give you a free pass. And we had different types of, we tried free pass, we tried 10% off, we did free t-shirt. So we were able to track all that stuff and not just say, well, did people come in, is the tourist season a little bit better this February or this January versus last January? We tracked it all meticulously with different codes that their team then had to input. So it was black and white that it was working. And that was just from the interviews. What then ended up happening, if I fast forward all the way to the end, was that of those 40, we've already had 17 of them do reciprocal promotions. We've had blog posts that are now permanent on their website. We've had numerous stories on TikTok and posts that are not going away that have no ad hashtag because they're not ads. We've done 4 podcasts. We have all of that free media just as a result of us being authentically interested in what they're doing, adding more value to their life, hitting the singles every day, and then following the process. We started to deploy the gifting strategy where we started to send gifts. They're used to getting asked to do things. So if you're doing the exact opposite and you're gifting, you're giving value, it completely disarms them and it just changes the game completely. 21% increase in tourist visits, which then continued to snowball. When we looked at the data about a week and a half ago, we compared a 90-day period to the 90-day same period of last year. Their amount of tourist traffic, tourist sales, including tracking codes, was up almost 50%. I think it was 46.8%. 50% increase in tourist visitors. So now, rather than having all of that downtime, they've grown their authority. They're getting more and more people that are coming in just by seeing this content that's already living online. They're producing content for their social media, so they're killing another bird with one stone and ultimately growing their business. This stuff works. So I wanted to share this with you today because more often than not, I focus and I talk a lot about the joint venture side because that is always where I recommend starting. But I wanted you to start to see, could it work on the PR side? And in a couple more weeks, I'm going to have another case study to share with a smaller business in a obscure niche that I didn't think would be as successful, but it has been. Work the plan. Hit your singles every day, execute it as I'm teaching you, and your business will grow. I would be so grateful if you would like this, comment, share. That is how I kind of feel the love from your side. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Tune in next week, and I will catch you then. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. See ya.